I've been playing Ponytown for a very long time, and in that time, I have done a number of things involving the Party Island, from make minigames on there, to review your builds, to doing build battles myself, and many other things. But throughout my years of playing Ponytown, there are a number of things that I've noticed in Party Islands that have just always got under my skin a little bit. This is going to be a list of building pet peeves, things that people do on their Party Island that I just straight up despise. It gets under my skin. It's a little bit of a pet peeve, and it just bothers me in one way or another. So let's go ahead and go to this Party Island example that I'm going to show you and go through all of the things on this list. So join me to one of the worst islands you will ever see in Ponytown. Right away, the very first thing you're going to notice is that the Party Island boat, or the party boat, whatever you want to call it, is in a terrible position. Not only did I just instantly get teleported to this ocean here, but if we actually zoom out and look at this awful island, I'm at the top of the island. I should be somewhere maybe in the middle or maybe in the bottom, or somewhere where once I get there, I can immediately see the island and I don't have to zoom out to notice the island or anything like that. But the second thing you'll notice is that there are clovers and flowers literally everywhere. This is one of the things that bothers me so much about what people do on their islands, is people will literally spam clovers and flowers everywhere as if it somehow improves the build. It's literally so bad in some cases that they put it inside their house, on their bed, on the floor, or they'll have like stone pathways of some kind, and it's like, yeah, sure, it's like a sidewalk or something like that, and it's like, okay, well, why is there so much clovers and flowers in your sidewalk? And it's just so much. And some people, of course, will also just put them and dump them into the ocean or something like that. And what this ends up doing is just wasting your item, your object limit. That's the main thing it does, and it doesn't really improve the build that much. Sure, you can put some flowers and clovers in your build or whatever else like that, but spamming them literally everywhere and putting them in places that make zero sense gets under my skin, and it will always bother me. That also kind of fits hand in hand with the spamming of items. For example, we have rocks just scattered everywhere. We have pumpkins scattered everywhere. We have these rocks over here scattered everywhere. We have these tree branches scattered everywhere randomly, just a bunch of spam for no reason. And in the house, we have a bunch of these gifts just sitting in the corner, just piled up in the corner for seemingly no reason, just a bunch of spam in places. This is especially annoying if it is something like this gift example right here, where there's just a bunch of gift boxes just sitting there in the corner, just all spammed on top of each other for literally no reason. I don't know why people think this is a good idea, and this is one of those things that makes me wonder if people don't realize that you can erase items on your island. Like, once you place it, you can press G on your keyboard, or if you're on mobile, go on here and press the X, and then delete them. And then, oh, that's right, you can undo stuff too. You can press Z on your keyboard as well, and that undoes things as well. There's so many ways to undo things or erase things. It's kind of... It's shocking, but this kind of spam thing makes me wonder if people don't realize you can do that. Now, next up on this list is items in places that make zero sense. For example, again, we're in this house, I guess, but we have a random rock in here. We have leaves and clovers, again, just here for basically no reason. We have benches in here, which again makes no sense. Why is there a bench inside this room? I guess maybe you can make something out of it or something. You can pretend it's something else. But an anvil, like, what are you doing with that? At this point, you're just putting random stuff that you like in your house, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it personally bothers me if there's something that makes zero sense. Another example is like this watermelon with this like tree thing coming out of it or something. Again, it's just like a, what is that? What is it doing there? It doesn't make any sense. It seems to be in the wrong place, which again, things not making sense on the island, of course, is another thing that bothers me. For example, what do you think this is right here? These two wooden posts with all this black stuff in the middle of it. I'll let you guys try to comment below what you guys think that is, and I'll come back to it in a minute. But another thing that really bothers me is something like this, where you have just one single thing on the island, or maybe two things on the island that's like winter or fall or something like that, and then literally nothing else is winter at all. It just screams, hey, I didn't pay attention to my build, or I didn't try. That's what it screams to me. It screams that you didn't try. Because sure, if it's something small like a tiny rock somewhere out here, yeah, see, I have like a tiny rock out here. If it's something like that, way off in the distance, and it's like surrounded by a bunch of other rocks or something like that, sure, that's fine or whatever, because maybe you just missed it. It's an honest mistake. But if it's something huge like this bench up here, how do you make that mistake and then not go back and fix it? Again, you can always press Z on your keyboard or press this undo button on the build menu, or you can even just get your rake back out and undo it. It's so easy to do. It's weird that this happens, but I see it all the time and it bothers me every time because it's like, did you even try? Did you actually try? Like, did you just give yourself like a 5-minute timer and then just gave up or something? I don't know, but that's what it screams to me. But anyway, moving back to this item here, this, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be a TV. That's what I decided this is. Let me know in the comments below if you were able to guess that was a TV. I guess I'll just be able to see the comments, and if you guessed it, I guess I'll see that. But that's what that is. That's kind of back to the thing of like people putting stuff together, and it's like, okay, what is that? It's very hard for a random person to kind of tell what you built there. And you see stuff like this all the time. I've seen stairs, for example, where people build stairs or ladders. I've seen certain statues or fountains and stuff like that. And in a lot of cases, it's really hard to tell what they were trying to build. But if you really think hard enough, you might be able to figure it out. But those kind of bother me a little bit. Maybe not as much as other stuff because, hey, at least they try to do something kind of unique and special. But let's bounce back a little bit and zoom out here so we can see the island as a whole. Because another pet peeve of mine is super square islands like this. As you can see, it's literally just one big square, maybe technically a little bit closer to like a rectangle or something like that. But just huge square islands like this bother me a ton. I don't know what it is. I guess it's because it's like they didn't, again, it's kind of one of those things where it feels like they didn't really try. They didn't try to kind of shape the island and kind of give it a unique shape and everything like that. Because it really doesn't take that many clicks to really get like a unique shape going on or anything like that. You can just put a couple things like that, and already that corner over there, that whole half of the island looks a million times better because it's just, it's got shape to it rather than being flat and square. And I guess another thing too is like the square islands are very unnatural and it just looks really bad because of that. Another huge pet peeve is huge empty spaces. As you can see, we focused 100% of our attention over here, yet we still have this huge island. This entire half over here basically has nothing going on. Sure, it has a couple of clovers and leaves because of course they're going to spam those everywhere, but maybe a couple of rocks and stuff like that as well. But there's literally nothing over here in this corner or on this corner over here. There's just these big empty spaces. Those are another big pet peeve of mine. I usually tend to forgive those a little bit more because, again, most people don't have huge object limits. But if you don't have a huge object limit, try to make your islands smaller or make your builds a little bit smaller, because then that will make them look a little bit better. And here is another thing too. You probably noticed a couple of these in a few different places, but this bothers me a ton. Every single time I see it, I immediately deduct points from the build instantly as soon as I see it, and that is the cookie branch and the crystal branch. This item honestly is like one of the worst looking items in the entire game. And that's because it doesn't really look good on anything. You can try to put it on trees like this. I've seen millions of people do it before, but it doesn't really look right because the branch looks very different than the rest of the tree. It's completely different color, and it's like, okay, well, why is there... It just looks a little bit weird. Why are there cookies hanging from the tree? With the crystals, maybe it makes a little bit more sense, but again, it doesn't look right. I've seen people hang them over doorways. Again, it doesn't look very good at all. And then I've seen people put it over their beds. Again, it doesn't look good. What is this even hanging from? I've seen people just place them randomly, like on the sides of bridges and stuff like that. And it just, every single time I see it, I've never, ever, and probably in my entire life, ever seen the cookie branch or the crystal branch used in a good way, because the item just kind of sucks, honestly. And that's my personal opinion about the item. But in my also, I have another opinion too, that if you put it, it just instantly ruins your island by a little bit. Even if it's just one in just one random spot, if I see it, I'm immediately like, oh my god, why is that there? It bothers me so much. And speaking of bridges, this is another big pet peeve, is terrible bridges. Bridges that basically don't function. Like, sure, I can go across this, but they bob up and down. It looks like it's been broken or destroyed or something like that, and that's not the intended artistic direction or whatever. Because you can make like, oh, it's a damaged bridge or a destroyed bridge or something like that, but a lot of the times when you see a bridge like this, it was intended to be a functional, cool-looking bridge, and the person who built it probably even thought it was cool-looking, but I'm sorry, I hate to say it, it's not cool-looking. Your bridges bobbing up and down and being broken like this looks bad unless that is the intended thing of it being like an abandoned thing, a broken thing or something like that. In my opinion, it just looks bad. That also brings us to, because you probably noticed a little bit as well when I'm walking around this island, it's kind of hard to walk around this island, and this is another big pet peeve of mine. You see this all the time as well, or maybe not as often, but a lot of the times people will put rocks and pumpkins or stumps, and those, as they keep placing items and stuff like that, they're just standing in one place as they place all these items. And so they place a bunch of stuff, and then they're finished, and then they start walking around, and then, oh my gosh, it's so hard to walk around here. I can't even get to my bridge. There's too much stuff in the way. I can't, how do I even get over there? And you start to struggle with it. And again, people for some reason don't like to undo things or delete stuff or move things, and so you just end up with a bunch of random items all kind of stacked close to each other, or in random places like these tiny rocks that make it very hard to navigate the island. It's super important that if you're going to have an island, it's navigatable. It needs to be set up in a way that people can actually walk around. Sure, you can have like huge cluttered areas or something like that if you're, depending on what you're doing. Maybe it's an area that's overgrown by plants. Maybe it's like a collapsed cave. Maybe it's a handful of buildings and it's like the slums or something like that, and it's just kind of all stacked on each other and it's a whole thing. There's a lot of ways that you can have clutter that makes it hard to navigate while still not only being navigatable, but also making sense. So if you put a bunch of items down, please make sure you can walk around the island. Another thing too is these windows here. I kind of maybe mentioned briefly something about them or something similar to what I'm about to say, but that is like confusing stuff. Just things in general that are confusing, not necessarily like a build that's confusing like the TV thing I mentioned earlier, but something like this, where this window right here is very obviously meant to be a door, and so you go through here, and then this must also be a door, right? But it looks really weird because it's not angled the right way. But yes, ladies and gentlemen, it is a door. And then you also have like a window up here, and it's like, well, this must also be a door then, because all the other windows that look exactly like this were doors. But no, this one isn't. That is another pet peeve of mine, where you use a certain technique for, like, again, like a door, for example. That's probably the best example. If you use a certain item as a door and then none of the other items are a door that are the same, like if you use that window as a door and then none of the other windows that match that window are not a door, then I don't know what you're doing. I don't understand. You're making it confusing for people that are joining your island. Sure, maybe only you play it, maybe only your friends play it and they already know about it or something like that, but it's still, it bothers me whenever I see it, like on the Reddit or wherever else. It just bothers me. And again, too, windows as doors are kind of, I think, kind of like probably not as good as they used to be, or maybe they are better now. I really haven't done it in a while, but stuff like this, doors that are going through vertical walls like this, they just don't work. The best way to do it would probably to just put it to the side like this, and then you can just say that, hey, look, it's an open door, and I can go through there, and the door was open or something. You could try to do something like that. Just don't do any kind of doors that are sideways like this. It just doesn't work at all. So the final pet peeve I have here is essentially where you just have, let's say, the default island. So we have the default island, and then someone decides they just get rid of a couple of trees or something like that, right? And then they're like, look at my island. Look at my island. I worked so hard on this island, and it's basically the exact same thing as the default island. Or they do maybe, honestly, a little bit more work than this. Maybe they get rid of a couple more torches. They put like a couple of like log slices or something like that to connecting these two islands or something like that. And sure, whatever. Again, the bridge looks a little bit awkward or whatever, but again, you're barely changing the default island, and you're claiming that you spent a lot of time on it, or you're acting like it's this fantastic thing that you did or something like that. It's really not that special. All you did is place a couple of items on the default island and called it a day and said that, hey, look, this is better than what it was before, and therefore it's good. Look, I'm gonna put an archway on the door of the house, but I'm not gonna move the house or anything. And it's this. Look at this. It's done. I'm finished. This island is finished. I added some logs and this archway, and I put a bridge connecting this over here. Look, I can put a picnic over here too. I can do a whole thing. Look, there's a picnic over here now. That means I did a lot of work on this island. If you barely change the default island or the default house, it's probably not a good build. Sure, you can use the same shape and do a whole lot of interesting things like that, but if you do something like this, where you place a handful of items or maybe move a couple of items around or something like that, it's not a good build. And trust me, I've seen this a ton, where I go to someone's island and like, please rate my island, or please check out my island, or they just share it on the subreddit or wherever else, and I look at it and I'm like, did you actually do anything? Or like, how much did you do? I see it all the time and it bothers me every time. So that is probably a huge, another big pet peeve there, where if you're going to do something, please do something rather than just doing a couple of things on the island. But that is my list of pet peeves on building. Let me know in the comments below if you have any building pet peeves or things that you see on people's islands that really bother you a little bit or something like that. Please let me know in the comments below. And if you want to see something like character pet peeves or something like that in Ponytown, let me know in the comments below for that as well. But for now, I hope you guys did enjoy. If you did, please do consider liking, subscribing, sharing, and doing all of those wonderful things like that. Because when you do wonderful things like that, not only do you get access to wonderful content such as this, but you also get to become wonderful yourself. And I think we all want that. So do those wonderful things, and until next time, stay wonderful.